So tell me something. Did you have 9 years in New York? A lot of people and artists keep saying, "Oh, you have to make a career in New York. You have to, There's this notion. A lot of artists feel like, if I have to become a serious artist, if I have to like really grow my career."
Well, I don't feel that you need to move to New York to build a career, but I'm glad I did because I was able to really just see how the cookie crumbles, like right in front of my eyes. Like see how galleries work. I worked in a museum. I worked in the Museum of Modern Art for 3 years.
And if you were to say, what has 9 years in New York taught you, you know, the most crucial thing that it has taught you in these 9 years?
That there's a lot of money out there. There's a lot. And I didn't know how much.
Welcome to the podcast, Larissa.
Thank you so much for having me, Alison. It's a pleasure to have a conversation with you.
Same here, same here. Okay, you're joining from Mexico, right?
I am in Puerto Rico right now.
Oh, you're sorry, Puerto Rico. Yes.
Yes, born and raised in Puerto Rico. I left when I was 19 to go to New York and study. And then I stayed. I stayed for 9 years in New York. Yes, it's where I built my career. It's where I built my network. Is where I learned really how to manage my business as an artist because I wasn't really taught anything about the business of art in
Yeah.
school. I minored in drawing and majored in painting. So they never thought to include a class to how to make money off your work. So New York was really my school, you know.
But 9 years, what made you come back to Puerto Rico?
So honestly, what made me come back was that my partner's father became really ill, terminally ill, and we wanted to spend his last days, months, weeks with him. And not only him, but we wanted to spend more time with family because I've been away from all my family for 9 years. So I thought that, and we thought that it was time to let go a little bit of that individualistic mentality that you kind of need to develop in New York, and then come back and see how we can be useful for others, like think a little bit less about ourselves. And luckily, I do this full time, so I was able to establish my studio and my home and continue working seamlessly. But it's still obviously an adaptive process because
And it's going to change your art. Like you, as we are, our work is an extension of who we are, the thoughts we consume, our environments, and it's going to bring that newness for you as well.
for sure. Yeah, I feel the island just influencing me, the conversations that I have with people. The biggest influence that I'm having right now is the conversation of health and just how it's just like I had never really noticed how big of a problem it was when I was in New York. Like I didn't pay as much of attention. And now being here,
It was probably also because in New York or metro cities and bigger cities like this, we're all constantly like. I think there's also like while we're in the bigger cities, there's a lot of facade that we're constantly so much busy in like cafe shops and like going for a morning coffee and like going to the gym and all of those things versus in smaller and islands and cities like that, the life is so much slower that we can really like you will start noticing things that you wouldn't usually like and I feel like I've been there because what, like you're saying, I stayed away. I moved when I was 18 and I moved away to a bigger city, the metro city here in India. And then when COVID happened, I came back, and my mom passed away. And ever since then, I've been staying a lot more, in my hometown in Agra, city of Taj. And I felt like, oh my God. And even though I keep traveling back to the city, main city now, but I also feel like, oh my God, there's so many things I never noticed. But also when I came back to the roots, it was like my art changed so much, like my subject changed, how I thought. It was like, again, I was just trying to, I was reconnecting with the part of myself I left 10 years till 12 years back, and it was like now I'm meeting her again.
I feel exactly that. I truly do. It's honestly, I feel like I'm awakening in a way because I'm able to just feel alive. I feel alive here. Like when I was in New York, I felt so restricted, like literally because my home was so tiny. But not only physically, like I felt restricted on like just didn't have enough nature.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, it's a huge difference. I agree. Like, having access to space, that can, and as artists, I can, that can be so crucial to your practice. And like you said, nature. So tell me something. Did you have 9 years in New York? A lot of people and artists keep saying, "Oh, you have to make a career in New York. You have to." There's this notion a lot of artists feel like, if I have to become a serious artist, if I have to like really grow my career, New York is the place. What do you say about that? How has first, let's talk about your 9 years of experience. How has that been for you? And then, did you have any? What are your thoughts on moving away from New York to Puerto Rico, and how it impacts you as an artist?
Well, I don't feel that you need to move to New York to build a career, but I'm glad I did because I was able to really just see how the cookie crumbles, like right in front of my eyes. Like see how galleries work. I worked in a museum. I worked in the Museum of Modern Art for 3 years. So I was able to see how the museum worked. I worked in galleries. I met so many gallerists and collectors and just people that work in the arts, and having these conversations really solidifies your identity as an artist. It helps you define that. Also, being surrounded by so many artists all the time, it inspires you to keep going. You feel that sense of community. It really helps in many ways, but once um once you learn what you have to learn from New York, I felt that now I can apply all that I've learned from anywhere, really, because it was incredible. Like, I did learn so much from people, from experiences, everything, but now I can apply that from anywhere that I am, which is priceless. So I can't imagine like everybody just moving to New York for a period of time. It is a fun thing to do. It is an expensive thing to do as well. And it is a sacrifice because you're leaving your family, you're leaving your comfort. And you don't even I didn't even realize when I was 19 what I was letting go. I didn't even realize the blessing that I had in this island just to be surrounded by natural life everywhere. Yeah, like I see parrots every day just flying next to me. Like it's so beautiful. But I kind of had to leave to realize what I had.
And also, I think so many things, like when I moved back, and like, um so many smaller things, like I love staying on the ground, because smaller cities, it's not the sky, sky rise or high rise. And it's just how smaller things matter. Access to space, like being able to stay on the ground and have bigger space, or not traveling hours from one point to another, and saving a lot of that time, and using that time to invest in yourself. I think that also feels very transformative.
Yes, you're absolutely right. Having more time is everything. I know the value of time right now, like more than ever in my life. And mostly because things are really slow here. So you realize like wow, like time is passing and you're just stuck in a line somewhere. Like it's just really slow. So that's something that I need to work on. Like my patience, I still have the New York impatience in me.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not going to go that soon.
So, still working on it, but I am grateful to have more time, just more time for myself, like you said, and more time to connect with my intuition, with God, with nature. Like, it's just so necessary.
How has slowing down impacted your art? Do you think moving back to the island? or like, making art in a smaller space in a faster city than now coming here? How do you think has that evolved you in any sense on your art?
Yes, I'm willing to spend more time with my work. I'm willing to do that. So before, I wanted to just be done. Just be done with this one, start the next one, let's get it going. It's a business, you're a machine. And now it's like it's much less about productivity. It's more about that process of like, you know what, I'm just gonna take my time with this tiny little thing just because, and I'm gonna enjoy it, and I'm not going to finish today, and that's okay. And of course, that means less productivity, which in the eyes of capitalism is a sin. But in the eyes of spirituality, of enjoying your process, of your having a long career, it's necessary. It's necessary to stop everything and take your time and like dedicate everything to your work. And that was hard to do in New York, honestly.
And if you were to say, what has 9 years in New York taught you, you know, the most crucial thing that it has taught you in these 9 years?
That there's a lot of money out there. There's a lot. And I didn't know how much.
And it's a game changer as an artist, because a lot of times we feel like, oh, I remember I was watching one of your videos and you said, like, and that's true. A lot of times we ask ourselves, like, if I don't make art, I mean, the world's not gonna stop. It's not like it's waiting for this, or it's like it's so essential to the world that if I don't make art, so it's not going to function. But yes, if I don't make art, I'm not going to function. And I that happened to me as well, in the sense, because I've juggled so many roles and hats, and I often asked myself, like, is it, am I intending to become an artist only because it's probably my ego, or a lot of times we set onto a path and we feel like, okay, now I have to. And while my mom's passing, like, all 4 years so far has have felt incredibly hard, but that was the biggest reminder to my life, like, if I didn't have art in my life, I just don't know how I would navigate it. Like, it is breathing, like you said, you know if I don't make art, it's going to break me more than the world. And that, like, this inner world is so much more important than any other world out there.
Hmm. Hmm. And it affects others as well when you're affected. Inevitably, you're going to affect the world. So it's just remembering that power is so important. And I have to remind myself all the time of that, like, because I feel so small sometimes. Like, I'm in this small island, I'm this small woman in this small space. But your voice has so much potential, so much power, yeah, you can influence so many people. And like, you just have to let go of fear, you know?
Tell me something about your work. How has your work evolved? Let's talk about the 19-year-old to I don't know what you're now, but this Puerto Rican version of you, 29. So that's
10 years. I would say my work has evolved in many ways, but what the line that stayed the same from the start is that I needed to express something that I just didn't know how to express. Ever since I was a child, because I started making art when I was 9. See, and the 9 keeps repeating itself. So like 19, 29, 9. So I started making art because I didn't have the space to express myself, and I really needed that. So it started out because my mother validated me when I was a child. For the first time, I felt her excitement about something I did, and I was like, okay, this is it. So that was my ego as a child as well, like wanting that. But little by little, I realized, like, wow, like I could really express something here. I could really show the world a part of me that I wasn't brave enough to show anywhere else. So that's how it started, and that's how it still is. But in New York, I started doing a lot of work, therapeutically, psychologically, and I started realizing that I could use my work to process trauma, to process self hate, to process a lot of things that I learned that I shouldn't be practicing as an adult, And one of those things was I learned from my mother that it was okay to hate your body because she hated her body. You know, I learned that very early on. And through my art, I was able to really examine my own body, really learn every curvature of my body, really learn every detail of my body. And I learned to see the beauty in it, you know? So that in itself was a therapeutic process. And then being able to tell my story, my intimate stories with my partner, with in my day to day, it all of that just opened a window of just like catalyzing what I was going through and just processing, and I was able to just know myself better, which is what I love about art. You know, it just reveals. You know, it's just it's beautiful. It's beautiful when that happens. It's so revealing. Um, so right now, what it's revealing back to me is that I can use my voice to make a change. You know, like it's about that. Is how can I impact the world? How can I make it less about me and more about educating, more about love, you know, like just giving what I learned, just giving it for free for people, you know? So that's really what I want to do with my practice right now is I want to continue painting. I want to continue exploring my imagination and telling my story, but also I want to become more useful to the world. Like, how can I be more of service right now? And if it's like making videos on Instagram for now, I'll do that. But also, I want to be able to talk with children, talk with emerging artists, and encourage them to not live in fear because I continue to see people not achieve what they want because they're scared. And it's a shame because there's so much talent. There's so much.
If you were to say the 19-year-old version of you, what was the, what do you think was the biggest fear that you had at that point, that, if you were, if you could tell yourself, like, that's not true, you'll make it?
The fear of not being accepted.
Because you also came as an outsider from New York, like, because you were out. This is a very important point, actually. I think we'll talk about this. Do you want to elaborate?
Yeah, in Puerto Rico, I wasn't. Well, the thing is that it wasn't really my choice to go to New York. It was my father's choice. He's the one who applied to university for me. Yes, and he applied. I got accepted, and they shipped me off to New York. So I didn't know what to expect. I was ready for, you know, a new experience, but it was so I was scared of not being accepted for sure. And also this idea of having to change myself, like if I like my body wasn't enough, like I wasn't enough, and I if I could meet myself again, and when I was 19 I would tell her, you are not your body, you are not this physical thing that you're so obsessed with. You know, you have so much more to give to this world than your image. So stop focusing so much on that. You know, put some energy in your expression, and you will go as far as you can even imagine where you're gonna go, you know?
Tell me something. I love this topic because I think a lot of us, of course, not everybody comes, and it's not even New York, but it's also like, things like how differently we speak. And let's say English is like, let's say I come from India, our native language is not English, even though we speak English. I know a lot of people who may not be as confident, will feel inferior, though there is no superiority between the two, but it's just a one set of example. But you know how so many times it's one thing is just labeled to be more superior, and a lot of people, like, let's say white artist, white male artist versus women artists, like, there's a lot of question of relevance, and a lot of we as artists question, a lot of women artists question if they can make in the art world or not. um, Artists of color. And I think another important, like another very strange feeling is also being an outsider and feeling that you can get into an industry. There's so many other artists who are from New York, who may be as talented as any of us, and the question keeps coming. I'm just an outsider. Who am I to, think I can do anything? Have you had those thoughts?
For sure. For sure. But the thing is that the beauty of New York and this is what I vouch for in New York, is that most people aren't from there.
Yeah.
Like when you're in New York, like most people you meet, right? They're from all over the place. They all have their dreams. They all have like a goal why they went to New York. And what I've noticed is that a lot of the people that are born and raised in New York, they don't have that ambition. They don't have that hunger that outsiders come and they're like, I'm gonna take over New York. You know, they're so hungry. But people from there, they're like, meh, they're not even that impressed with New York. They maybe don't even see how it's possible to achieve this or that. And they have so much more connections that we do. They have so much, you know, but they don't even realize what they have. So that's one thing that I noticed.
But isn't that like you said? Isn't that like all of us, like you said, 19 years old version of you didn't know what you had while you were in Puerto Rico, until you moved away and then you came back and you saw it as a 29-year-old and you were like, oh my God. Sometimes unless we really do, I really truly feel like it's so important as just anyone, once we grow, we get out of the shed we've grown in, go out in the world and then come back to it, we realize what we have, who we were, who we've become, the good and the bad. Like it's just a different lens altogether sometimes.
Yes, it's yes, 100%. It is that. It's just hard. Like if you're an artist, if you're an artist living in New York, it really takes a lot of hunger. It takes a lot of like you really, really, really want like have you have to be like kind of obsessed. You have to become obsessed like with your craft. Like and that's really hard to do when you're comfortable, you know, because it does require some discomfort. Maybe that's why people that are outsiders can achieve so much in New York is because they're, you know, they have a lot to lose, you know, like they're not comfortable. Every like, right, a lot of them have two jobs and they have to continue to make art regardless of this like time consuming, you know, life that they have. So perhaps that is what makes New York like or helps people achieve their dreams is how tough it really is.
What was your first moment specifically in those 9 years? I feel like where you felt like, okay, I'm reaching somewhere. Like the 19-year-old who came here to the person I'm now, I feel like I'm going on a path. Like I'm going towards where I want to be. Was there a relevant moment you felt like,
I would say during 2020, I was still working at the Museum of Modern Art. But whilst I was working there,
you were working as?
I was working as a clerk, as a selling tickets in the museum. But while I was working full time, so when I clocked out of work, I came home and I continued to make art. I was always making art, even with my full time. But during 2020, everything shut down. The museum closed, and I just had all this time on my hands, you know, and just being home. And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna make art every day. Whatever happens, happens. Just gonna do it. And when I kept doing it, I started posting online. I started posting my first videos of me talking online, and it was so casual. But you know, I didn't expect anything,
Okay.
nothing. Just doing it out of pure love for the craft, love to like find people wanting that connection. So it was very pure, and I started just getting followers, getting people asking for work, getting asked for commissions. I'm like, whoa, like I could really use Instagram to, yeah, like I could really do this full time. I could do this, you know, I could really do this. That's the first time I felt that it was possible. And it was thanks to Instagram, really, to that exposure. And it was also thanks to, you know, COVID because everything closed and I was able to hyper focus on. Yes, I left it in 2020. I when I first started making money off my work, I was already in like 3 years working at MoMA. And I started making money little by little. And I told myself, as soon as I can make the same amount of money that I'm making in the museum for 3 months consecutively, I will quit my job. And that's what happened. Everything aligned perfectly. And I'm like, okay, this is the time. Bye bye. And I just continued to do it on my own. It was scary because nothing is certain in life. Nothing is certain in that. Exactly. I thought that too, and my family thought that too, and everybody around me thought that too. But I'm like, I'm gonna give this everything that I have, everything, and I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to, you know, grow. I'm willing to just try new things because that's the thing. Something can work for you for a year and then stop working, and then you have to, like that's part of it.
That's also where the business side of the work comes in. Like making the work is one part, and then you realize, oh my God, there's this whole new game where I have to make sure that I'm making enough, I'm saving enough, I'm calculating enough, reaching enough, all of those things that never feel enough. How 4 years? I think a lot of artists struggle with this. How most of common asked question: how do I sell my art? How do I quit my full-time job to make art full-time? I think it's these are two so interrelated questions. If I make sell more art, I will be able to quit my job, and if I quit my job, if I want to quit my job today, how do I sell more art so that I can pay for myself? What is your experience since you've done it 4 years in the go and sitting in New York? How did you manage? What's your experience?
So I would say get a goal, put a goal for yourself as to how much money you want to be making per month. And if you are able to do it consecutively for at least 3 months, quit your job. Save your money. Saving money is essential to being able to quit your job. Because once you quit your job, you have to pay your rent. So make sure that you have enough money to pay your rent at least 4 months later. So having money saved was something that I did, and my father is a banker. He's been a banker for his entire life. So he helped me through everything. He helped me save money, he helped me invest my money, which is why I was able to move it to Puerto Rico in the first place. So saving your money is essential. And something that I wouldn't do, that I did, something that I would never do again, is that when I made my first, when I sold out my first solo show, ooh, that's a lot of money, yay! I started spending. Oh, I'm gonna buy this, I'm gonna buy that, I'm gonna buy that, because I thought that those things would bring status, that those things would bring a sense of fulfillment, of success, validation. I was wrong. I wasted money unnecessarily. So when you sell out your first solo show, invest it, put it in the stock market, let that grow and keep going slowly but surely. And you will reap the rewards. Oh my God, you are going to see so much money in the end. And it's not that I didn't see money, but now thinking back, like, that wasn't the wisest choice. And it's important to learn.
Yeah, we learn from a mistake. But okay, tell me something. How did you get into being in New York, being at MoMA? How did you start getting into getting more visibility, getting your work out there, getting shows, selling, connecting with collectors or gallerists, or how did you specifically being an outsider? Because a lot of artists say, "Oh, I don't have the connections, or I don't know the people, or not everybody is in New York." What has worked for you?
I didn't know anybody in the art world. I didn't know anybody, honestly. Like, when I was in school, I worked in a gallery because it was part of the program that I was in. And I met a gallerist, but that I never really worked with that gallerist, and they never showed me anything. Like, I learned about the business a little bit, but that was it. So everybody that I met that gave me opportunities that brought me business was through Instagram, was through telling my story on Instagram, being open about what I was going through and just sharing, like that. People really connect when you tell your story. And a lot of people are scared to do that. Maybe they think that their story is not significant enough, it's not important enough, but you are, like, your story is important, and so many people can relate to what you're going through if you simply share it. So that was the first thing that, you know, brought me business. That's how I showed in my first gallery, is how I sold my first artwork. And when I was selling a lot on Instagram, I didn't have a lot of followers. I had like 1,000 something followers. So it truly doesn't matter how many followers you have. What matters is your intention. Like, if you're going every day on Instagram and you're just telling a part of your story just because you're not expecting anything, just throwing it out there, I promise you that you're gonna see reward for that. You're gonna see the results of that.
what's hard and good and bad both. It's Instagram has become a lot of overwhelm now because there's been a lot of content. I think it's become just overwhelming to even go, and a lot of artists feel like, we all know how the whole thing has been about, but it was such a good time. I sold off a couple of collections in 2020, 21, and like the amount of visibility I got, and it was just like it was just it was amazing. Like you said, you realize, oh my god, it's just not me and my bubble who's making art and loving it and enjoying it. It's also other people who find value in it and relate to it. But a lot of artists struggle now because, the whole loop of, who am I doing this, am I putting it out this in a void where people are even not there, or my work does not even get shown, or things like that. I think that's become a little trickier now, don't you think? How's it been for you?
Yes, I agree. I agree. There's a lot of noise. There's a lot of people just trying to get visibility. So there's competition in a way. However, I think it's important to use as a tool, not solely like depend solely on it, but at least you know that you can get emails from people on Instagram. If you have their email, then you can develop an email list and you can reach out to them. You can send PDFs with your work, you can send studio updates. You can keep in touch on a personal level with people that you know that are interested in your work. So you really don't need to be, making this high production reel, or, high editing. I hate editing. I'm not gonna be making these like elaborate reels. I can hear you, but I can't see you.
You can't see me? I'm here.
There you are.
You said you hate high quality production.
I hate editing with all my heart. So that's like you like. I feel like some people assume that you kind of need to do all that because people on Instagram are doing that, and sure, you might get more views that way, but you're not necessarily gonna get a sale because you're spending 4 hours editing a video. That's not necessarily true. It's only when you really know what you're trying to communicate and you're able to communicate that clearly, that opens the door for a sale a lot more than a high quality video will ever do. So yeah, is the emails. Emails are key, and using Instagram to tell your story también, that's key.
I love that. Okay, last question. Now that you're in Puerto Rico, what's your plan? What's changed? What are you looking forward to? How your business is going to change? Is it going to change? How you're going to what are your plans? Do you have anything on your mind?
That is the question. I did. Because we came here thinking about family, thinking about, you know, all everything that's been going on, I didn't write down a plan on what to do. Although I know that being here, I'm gonna have a show here. I want to get to know the market here. I'm gonna make things happen here, just to get my name out there, because like people know me here, but people know me a lot more in New York and London because I've been so long over there. I grew my business there. So right now, my goal is to get out there and get to know people, and allow people to get to know my work. So any opportunity that I can create for myself in this island, I'll do that, while also keeping my business. Like, I'm an international artist, so thanks to Instagram, once again, like, I am able to get exposure worldwide. I still have shows in New York coming up, and it, it's just changing my the main thing that's changing right now is my personal life, is my dedication to health, is my dedication to my family, and that inevitably is going to bring good fortune to me, like I already know. Because like it's my talent is already there, my ability is never going away, and I'm never going to stop making art as well. So these things I know for sure. But what happens in my career, the opportunities that come my way, I I'm just here waiting while I work, while I do what I need to do. And of course I can go out and ask a certain gallery, "Hey, I want to do a solo show with you." And I already have a gallery in mind that I want to do that with, but I need to produce. I'm doing the work right now. I'm doing the best work that I want to make. Once I have my collection ready, I'm going to go to the gallery that I want to work with and be like, "Do you want to work with me?" Yes, no? And go from there.
I love how you've said two very, very important things. Create opportunities for yourself and putting yourself out there. Like, there's so many times I feel like people ask, how do I get this? And sometimes it's about how do I make it's not about getting it. It's something's not always going to come to you. You might also have to go to it and prepare yourself, and you're like, okay, I'm ready for this. Are you ready for me?
100%. I've always been one to, if people are not validating me, if people are not coming to me, I will validate myself and I will create the opportunities. And that's how I did it, and with the pieces that I did during 2020, everything that I made, no gallery came up to me knocking at my door. I told my husband, my fiance, I told him, "I want to make a show. We're gonna rent out a space in Brooklyn and we're gonna put up all my works and I'm gonna make a show." And we did it. We didn't even have a car, we didn't have anything, but we did that, and that opportunity, that brought collectors, that brought me museum curators went to my little show. Like, you just don't know who's watching on Instagram specifically, like you just don't know.
Thank you so much, Larissa. It was so nice. Thank you so much for sharing your journey, your thoughts, your work, all of it with us, with me, and everybody who's joined us and will be joining. How can we find you, support you? How can people find you on Instagram, anywhere else, and support you?
Thank you for having me. My Instagram is LDJ Negron. You can see my work and my website as well, larissadejesus.com. I update that regularly. It's a pleasure to has to speak with you, Alison. I hope that we get to speak again in the future. And if you're ever in Puerto Rico, please hit me up. If I'm ever in India, I will hit you up.
It's on my list. It's on. Yes, please. And there's so much similarity, like I think cultural, while I see it is in Puerto Rico and India, and I'm sure we will have a good time on both the places.
Yes, for sure. I mean, India is in my bucket list, so
I have to come to Puerto Rico for some reason. I don't know. I've always been um, I just love nature, and I look at Puerto Rico. I'm like, I mean, I feel like you're living in heaven.
it is a slice of heaven in here. It's hot. It's hot. So prepare for that.
Oh, so is here. I mean, in India, where the part of India I live in, when it's hot, it's terribly hot. It was 52 Celsius this summer. When it's cold, it's terribly cold. It's 1 degree, and and when it rains with floods. So I'm used to it.
Okay, so you're ready. Yeah, you're good to go.
You make a show happen, and I'll hop on that, or make a show happen in India, and I'll hop in there.
Oh, that would be awesome. That would be so awesome.
I'm sure. We put it out in the universe.
Well, it was great meeting you, Alison. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye bye.